My name is Rick McDowell. I'm the CEO and president of the Lee Summit Economic Development Council. I want to welcome you to this. This is something that we've been looking forward to for years. It's an opportunity to put together our businesses with our education system. And if you don't know it now, workforce is the #1 issue for economic development, for growth, their existing businesses, and attraction purposes. We will continue to do this and foster this and make this work. I appreciate all of you coming to our first meeting. I know it won't be the last, and appreciate everything you've done for us and will continue to do. I'm going to do a little bit of administrative. First of all, I do want to welcome a dignitary, if I could, Mr. Steve Arbo, City Manager. Well, you're right. No, thank you for being here, Steve. We appreciate it very much.
I didn't know it was a choice.
Very good point. So, but again, I want to thank all of you to come here. I think you're going to find an outstanding program. It's going to be interactive. I want you to join in as possible. And then I'm going to pass this over to Tina. That's all yours.
All right. So as Rick said, this is going to be very casual. If you can't already tell by now, we're quite casual, right? We've been sitting here for about 10 minutes. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Today, I'm just going to go over a few things. Really kind of going to bring you into my mind. I know that's somewhat scary, but most of you I have either had personal one-on-one conversations with in regards to this Workforce Alliance vision that I've had. And so, I'm here really just to kind of share it with you. So we're just going to jump right in. I pulled this slide because as I am out and about in the community speaking with business owners, managers, HR professionals, or even in the region, sometimes I feel like workforce is kind of used as a very loose term, and it is definitely a hot button, term these days. But the Merriam-Webster dictionary just basically defines workforce as really workers engaged in a specific activity. So really anyone, any kind of group that you would consider workers in is what workforce, the term for workforce. So the International Economic Development Council defines this term, workforce development, as efforts that prepare people for education and available careers and connect businesses to skilled workers. So, for example, that could mean job training, that could mean retraining, vocational education, basic skills like literacy and math, or hard skills like welding or information technology. And then, of course, our ever soft skills, right? So we hear this a lot. That could be work ethic, attitude, showing up on time. That seems to be one of the things that we hear most, or at least I hear most from employers as far as really a barrier these days to the younger folks who are starting in the workforce. You'll also notice that it says a skilled workforce is the #1 reason a business will choose to locate in a community. So I feel very strongly about this. For the LSEDC and attraction purposes, that is one of the reasons I spend so much time in workforce development, is because it can be used as a marketing attraction tool as well. But for me, it's really maybe more personal, that it is an avenue for us to really make a difference in our community, for those that live here and hopefully work here as well. So a skilled workforce gives people the economic mobility and higher earning power to support themselves and their families, offers businesses the workers they need to compete in a global economy, and provides communities a strong tax base to maintain and improve their quality of life. I feel like this is an important piece to share. And really it's important to the city of Lee Summit and why this workforce alliance is so important for us to all come together and really kind of work out some of these initiatives collectively rather than in silos or maybe individually. So workforce is kind of a big thing to tackle, but you really need to kind of start and look at it from the Kansas City metro region perspective in order for us to be successful. As we drill closer to this Kansas City region specifically, there are many organizations that are really driving data. They're solving barriers for the underserved populations and initiatives targeted at youth. So we have a Missouri Workforce Development Board. There's certainly tons of organizations who are just solely dedicated to workforce in the Kansas City region. And we need to be mindful of that. Of course, DESE on the education side is also working heavily to connect some of those skills to our youth. We have the Mid-America Regional Council, RWIN, who is really a regional workforce collective action for the community economic development groups to come together and share their best practices. So a lot of these organizations I am also part of, which I'm fortunate enough to kind of hear what others are doing around the region and try to bring those back here for our education partners and for our businesses. I want to definitely mention Casey Rising and the Kaufman Foundation in the workforce initiative effort for the region. They're all doing some phenomenal work. But each goal and mission for these organizations are slightly different, but they're often tied to certain targeted demographics or concentrated areas. All of these programs have elements that touch or enhance the economic outlook of our region and really do come back and collectively touch Lee Summit as well. So further drilling down, we do have some additional partnerships and alliances, some also with very specific driven missions. You'll notice, Casey STEM Alliance. I mean, certainly they're focused on STEM career development in the metro. Prep KC is a college and career readiness specifically for urban students. You have the Workforce Partnership, which is a partnership between Johnson, Leavenworth, and Wyandotte County. And they have a collaborative effort to do multiple workforce type initiatives specifically for their counties, right? So it's a little bit bigger footprint. They can work together on the Kansas side. The Northland Education and Business Alliance, they provide opportunities for businesses and education to partner. And I'll get into this a little bit more detail, but this is really one of those that kind of gave me some inspiration, if you will, for this group. So I think it's very important for everyone to understand kind of why the Lee Summit Economic Development Council is really at the center and pushing this initiative. You have, our mission here, which we are a nonprofit public-private partnership, and we are really devoted to improving economic well-being for the entire community. Capital investment and job creation is really what we use to measure. And that check marks attraction, where we're bringing new companies to Lee Summit, expansion for our existing businesses through growth of our existing business, workforce development, and then marketing our community. You will notice that, LSEDC works to solve barriers for growth for business. And specifically, that really is my role in the EDC, is to work with our existing businesses to help try to remove barriers for growth. And these days, the number one barrier is workforce. And it hits every industry, every size company, and really after COVID, there's no discrimination as far as workforce is concerned. So I spend a lot of my time focused in these areas for sure. So whether it's a new company to Lee Summit or an existing businesses, everyone's trying to hire qualified skilled workers, and it just never stops. And I think every single one of you can really attest to that. Whether you're a business or an educator, you understand how important that is. So I wanted to be sure and show a list of our major employers. So now I have the employee counts listed here, but I will tell you, typically before COVID, these numbers didn't change a lot. If we had a major employer who was going to do an expansion of their facilities, and of course, typically that comes with added jobs, then that also creates, new job creation for us. But I will tell you, in the last couple of years, these numbers have fluctuated significantly, and I bet you none of these are accurate right now. These numbers are from February of this year. So that is also one of the reasons that this is so important for me personally and the EDC, is that we want these numbers to just really grow, right? And we also want to attract the new businesses here that are bringing large amounts of employees, but we want your small business to also grow into a large business. So it's important, I think, just to kind of share this information. So some of the ways that the EDC works, some of our initiatives, if you will, is business outreach meetings. So part of my time is scheduling one-on-ones with CEOs or HR managers to just sit down and do what I call a business retention visit. What that means is I'm really just kind of getting to know the executive, making sure to kind of ask questions specifically about their financial aspects. Are they steady? Is their industry experiencing some disruption? And if so, what kinds of disruptions are those? Are they drilling down to the local level? And if so, what does that mean? Because if I'm talking to a manufacturer, likely the rest of our manufacturers are probably dealing with something similar. And then I know that I want to bring all of the manufacturers together and have targeted conversations about what do we need to do to get over the barrier in order for them to be successful and growing. So as you can imagine, I meet a lot of people. I make a lot of relationships. And after so many visits, it's really not, I'm really not check marking the boxes anymore when I'm having those conversations. It's really just about fluid conversations. And I'm wanting them to come back to me or even pick up the phone when they have an issue and know that they can trust the EDC to step in and do what we can to solve that barrier. In the last, probably, I'd say 4 or 5 years, we've been hosting what we call HR roundtables. This is where we have HR professionals and managers, recruiters, meeting bi-monthly. And we're really just allowing them to have fluid conversations, share best practices together. And in the last couple of years, that's really been targeted towards attraction and recruiting new employees. So one employer will share with, we typically have a lot of healthcare join us, and they're now fostering relationships where they're maybe even having conversations outside of the group, and know that they can call each other and say, hey, what are you seeing right now in recruiting certain types of talent? And they'll even share, who they go to or how they're going about tackling that issue. I'll tell you, during COVID, these folks were extremely busy, if you can imagine. But I did get a lot of information about our economy and how things were going during COVID from our HR managers. So they were struggling to keep up with policy, right? We had a lot of shifts with the masks. We're still having issues when it comes to do you vaccinate or not vaccinate? Is it mandatory? Is it not mandatory? Are you keeping track? Are you not? And ironically, we have some really talented HR managers who are sharing what that looks like to the rest of the group. And I mean, they're clearly educating me because I'm not an HR manager, but I'm learning a lot for sure. In addition, as I mentioned before, I do participate in regional workforce committees, and this has been, again, highly beneficial, I believe, for the Lee Summit community in being able to represent Lee Summit and tell them all the great things that we're doing, but also hearing about, what's going on up north, what is going on in Kansas from their types of initiatives in which they're doing. And then lastly, our education ecosystem. It's funny, if you've been around for a little while, you remember where this term came from. So Dr. Kirk Nooks, who was the past president of MCC Longview, he was certainly a community champion and definitely missed, I would say, in our community. But this education ecosystem really has to do more with the collaboration that happens with our education system and the businesses who plug into that. That's another reason why the Workforce Alliance is such a great place to really start, because now it really brings everybody together in a regular avenue to do so. So the education ecosystem looks a little bit like this. So we have some public school systems, right? We have Lee Summit R7 and Blue Springs. We certainly have university presence with UCM and MCC Longview in our backyard. We do have some private schools here with Summit Christian Academy, St. Michael's. But I think what this represents to me is how the LSEDC I'm already bringing CEOs and HR managers together. We do have city leadership on our board. Steve Arbro, the manager, is a member of our board of directors, as well as the mayor. We are connected to state and regional government. And then, of course, the Lee Summit Chamber, Downtown Main Street, and Velocity, we all collectively work together on initiatives, but this is definitely one where the EDC can't do it by themselves. As I mentioned, I kind of mostly work with our major employers, but the chamber works with lots of employers or small businesses that I don't necessarily connect with. And that's definitely essential, as well as Donnie. The downtown is thriving. We're bringing more business here, and we want to be sure that we're plugging everyone into the conversation at all levels. So, Missouri Innovation Campus, where we are today. This is a prime example of what can happen when we all come together. This idea was inspired through a collaborative meeting between LSR7 and UCM. And I believe it even included a scratch drawing on a restaurant napkin. I think I've heard that story a few times. But I think that just kind of goes to show you when two people who are in prime positions can sit down and have a conversation, come up with an idea, and then bring the right people around the table, you can really make great things happen. And I'm really excited to see what we can accomplish really collectively together here. So this little Lee Summit Workforce Alliance, I wanted to show this slide because it's important for you to understand who all has been invited to the table. So even as you're looking around or maybe looking on Zoom, I sent out maybe 152 invites, personal invites to this group. And every single person or industry or education partner here has been invited to the table. I thought and I still believe that it's very important that we have all industries represented that touch Lee Summit. And that's kind of how I came up with the industry list. So remember that Northland Education and Business Alliance I mentioned earlier. I have spent probably a good 6 months up in the Northland within this past year. This has been established for more than 20 plus years through the Clay County EDC. In doing some research and meeting with their leadership team, as well as this group. So it's formed as a committee up under the EDC, but it has its own guidelines and mission. So you'll see the mission is that Northland Education and Business Alliance creates mutually beneficial business and education partnerships that support workforce and economic development. Pretty broad, right? But really what that means to me is that they've got, they have a pillar for education and they have a pillar for industry. Their values really surround leadership, focus, partnerships, and now they have chosen 3 strategic areas to focus on. That doesn't mean that we have to focus in that area. So this is how the organization structure kind of works. So NEBA has 2 co-chairs in charge of leading meetings and all business that pertains to operations. So membership, partnerships, logistics, technology, you kind of get the feeling there. There is a co-chair for education and a co-chair for business. Up under that organization forms committees. So working committees are formed once the group has established what the annual initiatives look like. As I had mentioned before, this is this year's initiatives that they kind of focus in. And their meetings are structured kind of held with a monthly, bi-monthly rotation. So the first month, they work in regular session where their co-chairs are presenting, organizational updates. They do a roundtable discussion, which kind of helps really facilitate what they're currently working on individually. And then they have committee breakouts where they can dig a little bit deeper into the initiatives that they've formed. The next month is really more about a featured presentation. So it could be a panel, it could be a outside group who's working on workforce development, come in and really speak to the entire group. And then there's some networking. One thing I did find with NEBA was that they really felt that networking piece was essential, and it's only been going on for the last couple of years. But the networking piece really allows to foster the relationship piece in between the education partners and the businesses. So it shouldn't just be all work, right? It should also be a little fun and a little relationship building. So you really feel like outside of the group, if you need something, you can certainly reach out to that person. So with that, I went ahead and kind of went out on a limb and wrangled 2 co-chairs for us. That was the hardest part, right? So our business co-chair to kick things off will be Lori Johnson. She is the VP of Human Resources for John Knox Village. So Lori's been with John Knox Village since 2017. She has a bachelor's degree, you can read that, and Master's of Science in Organizational Leadership. But Lori's an active member of several organizations, and She also is on a lot of board of director positions, but the one that really struck me is that she is also part of our Eastern Jackson County Workforce Development Board. And I feel like that's really important. We're certainly not ready to go countywide here, but I do kind of foresee that as something we could do moving forward once we feel like we're really got it going on here in Lee Summit. Maybe we want to share with our neighbors since we're kind of pulling their workers here anyway. So Independence and Blue Springs could be looped in later. And there are, I feel like that's something they would appreciate as well. So our co-chair for education, big surprise, drum roll, Dr. Laurel Hogue. So those of you who don't know Laurel, she has been instrumental to EDC in the community for workforce development, but also with our LSR 7 school district and really embedded in the Lee Summit community. And I really felt like Laurel would do an excellent job in helping us really kind of build momentum this year. She is also on multiple boards, as you can tell, and that grad force, KC, really kind of jumped out to me, as well as the KC Rising. So she is also on our EDC board of directors recently this year, I believe. So it just kind of made sense to have representation from our board and from UCM. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Laurel just to kind of say a few words about this year.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for that introduction, Tina. I really appreciate it. I don't necessarily have to give you any of my background at this point. I have been a community member in Lee Summit since 2000. So I've been here in Lee Summit for over 20 years. I've worked for UCM for the last 18 years. And I got the agenda for this meeting, and I looked at the agenda, and I was listed under looking ahead. And I will tell you, I wish I had a crystal ball, especially when it comes to this group. Tina gave me about an hour's debrief on her thinking, and I had a chance to go out and look at what that Northland group is doing. And it was really impressive work. They say 20 plus years, but it really has been almost 30 years that they've been bringing business and education together. So right now, my crystal ball, to be totally transparent, is a little foggy. I don't know what the future of this group is going to look like. It'll be really based on the feedback that we get from all of you in this room, and how you want to be involved moving forward. But what I do know is that Lee Summit is invested in their community. We're so fortunate to have so many businesses and secondary and post-secondary educational institutions and strong leadership across many different groups here in the city. And I think it's impossible to really know all of the opportunities and the educational pathways available to all of us, but I think we can do a better job communicating them through an alliance like this. I think about the level of collaboration that happens when you get people into spaces. Tina highlighted the Missouri Innovation Campus. It's amazing the level of collaboration that's happened between the LSR 7 school district and UCM over these past 4 years, across workforce and dual credit and fast track programming, strengthening our Missouri Innovation Campus program, and just sharing of equipment. We've got $1 million worth of new equipment coming into this building that high school students and university students will get to use from 7 o'clock in the morning almost till 10 p.m. in the evening and Saturdays. So, and we know that this work can happen because we know that our friends in the Northland have been doing it for a long time. But I love what they've created. It's almost like an easy button across industry sectors. They bring together education and business, and they provide industry tours and talent recruitment and mock interviews and teacher externships and student mentoring and job shadowing. And programming that has embedded industry recognized credentials that all of you are looking for in your employees, and client projects and guest speaking and internships, and the list goes on. And so I just want to say that I'm grateful for Tina's vision on bringing us together so that we can mutually benefit business and education and create partnerships that support this workforce and economic development initiative. And I know that we're getting ready to engage in some roundtable discussions. So I think, you know, what really is important to keep in mind is what do we need to know from each other to foster these partnerships. And I'm sorry that my co-chair Lori couldn't be here today, but we're going to follow up with Tina here in the next couple of weeks to debrief on all the feedback from you in this room so that we can start to plan for the future. And with that, I will turn it back over to Tina to lead the roundtable. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Lee Summit residents who've been here for generations. The city's growing and will be growing continually. So we could have, with the onset of 4,000 acres, maybe how many residents is that? 20 or 30?
35 to 40,000.
35 to 40,000 additional residents in the next 20 years. That is mind-blowing. So if we don't get on top of the workforce issues right now, we could be in some serious trouble, right? We won't be able to attract companies. We'll just be all living here, right? Going to the gas station and hoping we got somebody to help us pump our gas or pay for stuff. So, you know, even every level is. Okay, we're probably going to end early, which is not necessarily a bad thing to me. Getting the time back in my days, precious. But I do want to leave you with, we're going to follow with a survey. It's essentially going to ask you some questions pretty broadly about where you feel like the initiatives and the focus are, maybe what your pain points are, your level of engagement maybe. And this will help the co-chairs kind of decide what we want to do moving forward. One thing I'm a little foggy about, and this will be an additional question, is my goal was to have the last Wednesday of every month just be a standard stamp. However, clearly next month is Thanksgiving and the month after that is Christmas, right? So that's like 2 months that will be difficult for people to come together. That will be also a question that I'm going to send out on the survey is, hey, do we use this time to kind of do some more planning and just jump right in on January? Or do we just want to do a Zoom and see what happens? Mm-hmm. So look for that. But I really appreciate everybody coming today. I really look forward to what we're going to do together. So thank you guys so much.